Hey beautiful people, it's Mizko here, and today we are stuck in another 2-week lockdown. So that is why we're going to go ahead and design and build the Google homepage in both Figma and then in Webflow. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright guys, here, let's take a look at the Google homepage. As you can see here, we've got a couple of links in the header, they've got a simple image, this input field, and then 2 buttons, and it's also responsive. So what we're going to go ahead and actually design this in Figma with all the responsiveness, and then we're going to build the desktop version in Webflow. So without further ado, let's get right into it, guys. Let's go ahead, delete this, and start from scratch. So F on your keyboard, hit desktop, and let me just reassure you guys, a bit of a disclaimer. This is less of a tutorial and more of a walkthrough of how I would do this. So I'm going to speed things up a little bit. Sit back, relax, enjoy, and I'm sure you're gonna learn a thing or two as I walk you through the entire process from end to end. So let's go right ahead, guys. Homepage, and I'm gonna take a look at the header of Google, and you can see over here, top left corner in the tooltip, it says 2101 by 60, meaning the height of this actual header is 60 pixels. So we'll go ahead and draw down a frame, and I'm gonna give this 60 pixels. And then inside this frame, I'm going to give this about, the 2 links, about, and then I believe it said store. So I'll name this as header, and then I'll also group these 2 links and hit Shift A to turn it into an auto layout, make the spacing 16 on the right hand side, and call this header underscore links, and then you can center it vertically, and just making sure that there is 32 spacing on the left hand side. Perfect. I'm going to hit Command D, bring this over to duplicate it. Then we will call this Gmail, I believe it was, and then images. And then I'm going to go back over to Google, right click on this icon, inspect. I can see that this icon is an SVG in the code, so I can right click, edit as HTML, copy this, head over to Figma, paste it in, and voila. Same as this image of myself, beautiful image of myself. Command V, make sure header links is selected, Command V, and it'll automatically place it down. What I'm going to do is make sure header links is selected. Actually, I'll rename it now. So change header links to header actions because it's a group of actions. Center it vertically. And then also in the auto layout section, alignment and padding, I'm going to select the right side and then also vertically centered. So it's nicely tucked in over here. Make sure there's 32 spacing on the right hand side, and voila, that is all done. What I also want to do is make sure the constraints are set to left and right. So then if I hit on homepage and drag this in, whoops, that's incorrect. Make sure that this is left and right, and then I'm going to make sure that the header links is also left, good, and then on the actions, on the constraints, that this is right. So if I now click on my homepage, I can see that this is all voila. Now, if you don't understand why this is happening, make sure to gently smash that link above, because that video will help you understand how to leverage auto layouts and constraints. Now, that is all done. Next section, we have a section over here with an image, an input field, search bar, and then 2 buttons. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and create a new section inside a frame. Drag that down and call this, let's just call it the hero section. Then I'm going to go ahead to Google and copy this image and paste it inside, align it to the center, so it is centered aligned right now. And then let's just call this hero image, right? And then we're going to make this input field and grab these 2 icons. So since we're already here, let's just inspect this. It's an SVG, once again, right click, edit as HTML, copy and paste that icon, paste it down. Let's also grab this one as well. So you can right click, edit as HTML, copy and paste that, and put it down. All right, so inside this hero section, I'm going to draw a search bar inside a frame, right? And then I'm going to make it 48 pixels tall. I'm going to add a stroke to this. I'll just use the standard gray for now and give this a border radius of 100 to make it rounded. Perfect. It's centered aligned. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this magnifying glass and move it to the top left. So push it inside that frame. which is the search bar. So let me just quickly name this for you guys. Search bar. And then we have an icon, which is the magnifying glass. And then we also grab the speech icon and put it inside the same frame. Perfect. So I'll call this icon as well. And this one would be, technically this would be icon slash speech. And this one would be icon slash search. All right, because if we componentize these, then combine them as variants, then we can actually use variants within our components. So as you can see here, inside the hero, we have, let's just move this down. We have an image, and then we have a search bar. So let's just quickly rename that, search bar. Perfect. And then what we want to do is add 2 buttons. Now, how do we create buttons? I've taught you guys this before in the previous video. Gently smash that video in the top right corner if you want to learn a little bit more about auto layout. But search Google, right? And then what I'm going to do is actually make this auto layout, and then we're going to add a fill. So let's just use a gray. Here we go. And let's just extend this a little bit more. And what we're going to do is make sure that this has border radius of 4. Perfect, looking good. And then let's go ahead, duplicate that, and make this I'm feeling lucky. Cool. Oh, I also forgot to make sure that this image is rounded. So give this a border radius of 100, and that's looking good. Let's make this icon gray as well. There we go. Or maybe a little bit darker. Cool. So now we actually have Google Design. So let me just quickly also name these correctly. So button and primary. I might even turn this into a component. Delete I'm feeling lucky, and duplicate this primary button, and then turn this I'm feeling lucky. So we're using a bit of some of the components to make our lives easier. I would group these together. I would center align it as well, and just make sure that the spacing is divisible by 4, so 28 probably. And let's also move this further down. So let's go 28 as well. There we go. So we have a very responsive Google website. So once again, we haven't done the constraints just yet for the hero section. So if I hit hero, I want to make sure that this is always stuck to the left and right. So when I'm scaling something down, the edges are going to be tucked in and they're not going to stay fixed. Then I also want to make sure that the hero image is always in the center. I also always want the hero search bar to be in the center. And then I also want these primary buttons, so I'll call these CTAs, in the center as well. So now if I click on the home page, that should, yes, make sure it's all responsive. So let's do a very quick recap. We've got a home page. We have a header. Inside the header, we have 2 sections called header links and then header actions. And then inside the actions, we have, I would name this header profile, and then we'd call this header menu. And then we've got 2 links, right? And then inside the link section, we've got 2 links as well. Inside the hero section, we have an image, a search bar, and then the CTAs. Now, one thing that we want to do is in this search bar as well, if we want to really go above and beyond, we can go ahead and make sure that this search bar is centered, correct? This search icon is also tucked to the left and always tucked to the top of this search bar. And this speech icon should always be tucked to the right-hand side and then to the top as well. So we can move this over a little bit more. And then if we double click on the search bar, we can extend that and it'll always be responsive. Perfect. Now, once again, we've done the Google homepage in a couple of minutes. Let's head over to Webflow and build it now. So let's head over to Webflow. And once again, guys, I apologize if I'm working very quickly, but this is more of a very quick run through of exactly how I would do this. So you can pick up a thing or two while watching this video. Now, I'm gonna leave this Figma showing a little bit of the design just so I remember what I need to build without having to flick through between all the different screens. So once I'm in Webflow, head over to your panel, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that we are on all pages. Make sure all pages is being styled with the body font size of 16 pixels because we're going to use M's for font sizes, and aside from that, we're good to go. So I like to go Command E, open up the search panel, and I'm going to put down a div, and I'm going to call this section because it is a section. And what type of section is this? This is going to be the header. So once again, that's all done. I'm going to hit Command E. I'm going to put down a link first. No, sorry, I'm going to put down a div first, and I'm going to call this, what do we call it? Header, and then we're going to call it actions. So remember, we are going to create, header links. We're going to create these two links over here. Right, header links, and then header actions. So we're going to create those two. So over here, we are going to actually call this header links, and then I'm going to hit Command E, and then I'm going to put down a link in here, and we're going to call this about, right? And then this link, we're going to give this a class. Let's just say all links for now, and we don't want the underline, so we're going to take off the underline. And we also want to make sure that this font size is 14 pixels. So because we're using ems, 14 divided by 16 is 0.875. So 0.875 ems. I'll be making a video about ems and all of this clunky, complex stuff in future videos. But for those who understand, just keep watching along. For those who don't understand, just keep watching along as well. So we've got all links at 0.875, which means it's 14 pixels. Then what we're going to go ahead and do is Command C, Command V to duplicate that and turn this into store. Alright, so we've got two links down. And because these both have a styling of link, if I add 16 pixels in between each one, you will see that that would apply it to both. Now we also want to make sure that this header, right, has that spacing on each side of the header, so we have consistent spacing. So on the header itself, let's go ahead and add padding of 16, and or was it 32? I think it was 32. 32 and 32, always divisible by 4. Perfect. And then what we want to do is we want to make sure that these links and everything inside this header is always in the middle, vertically centered inside. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and flex this, which is somewhat like auto layout in a sense, and then we're going to go align center, right? And then that's pretty much it, vertical and centered. So what this should do is, why isn't this being set? We've got to give this a height of 60 pixels. There we go. So because there's a height of 60 pixels, and now we're vertically centering all the elements, that should all work. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and copy header links, paste it down, and we're going to rename this to header actions. And then I'm going to call this Gmail link, and then it was an images link, and then I'm going to add the burger menu inside. So I'm going to go ahead and hit image, and I'm going to put down a burger menu, and then I'm going to do that again, and I'm going to put down that profile photo of myself, right? This would be called, what did I call it again? So if I head over to my header, it's called header profile. So I'm going to call this header profile, give it a height of 32 pixels, and voila, it's all done. Looking very, very nice. Then I'm going to call this header menu, and give this a margin of 16 pixels to give it that nice spacing. And then you realize that these two are stuck right next to each other. Hit on header again, and I'm going to justify this content to the left and the right. So the reason why it knows to break it in between here is because I've created these two sections. Now, moving forward, I'll be creating more beginner type videos to help you guys understand all this and how you can think ahead while building. But right now, hope you are enjoying this video and learning a thing or two about how you can take designs into development. Then we have a whole section called hero with an image, input field, and then two buttons as well. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and create a new section. So I'm going to put down a div. I'm going to give it section, and this section is the hero. And then inside the hero, I'm going to put down an image. I'm going to choose that image. It's going to be called this image that I stole from Google. Please don't report me. And then what we want to do is we want to make sure that inside the hero that everything is centered aligned. So once again, we're going to have flex on this container, Then we're going to align everything centered, and then we're going to justify all the content in the center horizontally as well. So that should bring that in. Then what we want to do is we want to go ahead and create this search bar. Now with this search bar, it's not as easy as simply just in design where you just drag these icons on top of the input field. Because remember, in development, when you tell the computer that there is an element here and you want to put something on top of it, you need to literally tell them to stack on top of each other, or else they'll simply go next to each other or simply above and they'll stack like that. So what we need to do is we need to go ahead inside this section, hit Command E, drop down a div, which I would like to call the hero search wrapper, right? So wrap. So this container will help me contain everything inside, and I can control all the positioning. Now inside that, I want to make sure I put inside a form, right? And I'm going to delete these labels and this search field, and then I'm going to use this text field that they have pre-populated as the actual search bar. I'll give this a name of input. I'd also make sure that the border radius is at 100 pixels, so it's always curved. And I believe this input field should be 48 pixels and 495 pixels wide. So obviously, if we wanted to get real granular and real detailed about this, it should be multiples of 4, so maybe 484, and then the height should be 48, right? And then we will also want 2 buttons over here. And let's not forget the actual icons. So here it gets a little bit trickier, guys, a little bit more tricky. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put down a div inside here, and just follow along. I'm going to call this div, let's call it hero search wrapper, and I'm going to put inside this the input field, and then I'm going to put in 2 icons. So I'm going to put the icon of the actual search bar, right? A search icon, and then I'm going to put down an image for the actual search speech icon, sorry. All right, so from here, what I want to do is I want to make sure that the hero search wrapper is selected. I also want to make sure that the position is set to relative. This is a little bit more of a complex topic, and I'm not going to cover it in this video, but I'm going to make this relative, and then I'm going to position these icons absolute. I'm going to position them to the top left corner, and then I'm going to position this one to the top right corner. Now I need to label and give these images a class name. So I'm actually going to go ahead and go hero search icon, and then give this one another class name. So hero search speech, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and position it again, absolute to the top right corner, and this one to the left, right? And there we go. What I want to do is I also want to make sure that this is being pushed down so it is centered, like over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to increase the percentage and actually use M's over here. And I can see that if I go 1.2 M, maybe, is that centered? Yeah, 1.1 M, cool. So 1.1 M, 1.1 M. And then if I give that to the left as well, that should hopefully, M, that should push it in as well. All right, perfect. So I'm going to do that to the other icon as well. There we go. Okay, so that's not the best. Let's push that in a little bit. Cool. 8, and let's just bring that up a little bit. All right, so we've got the search icon looking good, and then for the buttons, search Google and I'm feeling lucky. Now I'm going to go ahead and just rename this. So search Google, and then I'm going to duplicate this, place it down, and I'm feeling lucky. So I'm feeling lucky. And then what we're going to do is we're going to give these buttons a class name. So similar to Figma, once you give them class names, you can manage them more globally. So this will be button, and we might call it button, and just give the stylings of button the global style. So every button is going to have a border radius of 4 pixels. So you can see that there is a slight border radius around there. So 4 pixels, and let's make sure that the coloring is correct. So the coloring of these buttons should be 333. We'll leave that for now. And then what we're going to do is it's going to be the primary button. So if it's a primary button, we're going to make it that gray color. So let's just choose a gray color, and the coloring should be 3333. Cool. All right, so then if I give this button the class name of button, and you'll see that the border radius went to 4. And then if I go to primary, ta-da, all done. Now what I also want to do is I also want to add a combo class to this button and say this is margin right 16. So this is how I like to target, like give specific class names to, like utility class names to different elements. For margins and paddings, I like to say margin right 16. If it's bottom, it would be B16. So over here, that's all done. Now, if we click on our form, we can also position everything. Or if we actually just go into our form block or search wrap, we can actually center everything by hitting the align center. Now, one last thing. Once we click on our main section, because we've got all the elements styled, we can actually hit direction to vertical, and ta-da, everything has been sort of aligned. Now from here, what we can do is we can add some spacing. So there is 110 spacing. If we want to be very pedantic, we can do 120. So image, give this a class name. So hero image, class name would, margin would be 120. And then we can add 40 pixels or 28 pixels in between each section. So this image could also have a 28 pixel on the bottom. Then this actual hero wrapper, search wrapper, can have a margin of 28 pixels. And ta-da, we are all completed. Now, hopefully you learned a thing or two in how you can take designs all the way into Webflow, and you can start to sort of align the dots and understand that the structuring of your Figma file, the organization, the naming conventions, and your decisions that you make in Figma will translate into either real code or no code applications. The way that you build a lot of your designs really are driven by how you think about and how you structure things on your Figma file. Now, once again, I understand I moved very, very quickly in this video. The purpose was not to give you guys a tutorial on how to do this. This was more a run through of how I would approach this in a live situation. Now, if you guys want to learn more about Figma, mastering Figma in every single aspect, from naming conventions, responsive designs, and all that good stuff, I am releasing a Figma masterclass. So make sure to check that link in that description, because this will be going live fairly soon. And once again, I will be releasing courses on Webflow, UI, UX, and all that juicy stuff to make you become a legendary designer. So hopefully you found this extremely useful, and I will see you in another video very soon.